Hey guys, Tina here and welcome to another video. This time around I'm reviewing Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. This is a phenomenal start to his Raven Shadow trilogy. You meet a really likable character that you cannot help but love, and the story is full of mystery that will capture your attention and keep you reading until you're finished. When we first meet Valen Arsona, he is very much a grown man. He has been imprisoned for the last 5 years by his enemies, and now he has been given an opportunity to win his freedom by fighting in a fight with this man of great reputation. And if he wins, he goes free. If he dies, he will be very much dead. So he's traveling to this fight location, and he's accompanied by a chronicler called Reniers. And it is to him that he tells his life story up to this point. As we go back into Valen's past, we meet him when he's 10 years old and being taken by his father, the renowned Battle Lord of the Unified Realm, to the House of the Sixth Order. Now, the easiest way to explain the House of the Sixth Order is to just imagine a monastery with fighting monks, sort of like Templars, I guess. And Valen is supposed to spend the rest of his youth there, training daily to become a fighter, and once he's going to be fully trained, he is supposed to join his other brothers in protecting the faith and the realm from enemies, whether there be deniers or different kind of enemies. So basically that is what the first part of the book entails, and then once he's older he has to face different problems and challenges, and I have to say that I enjoyed every last bit of his story. It just flows really nicely, the pacing is fantastic, it's really intriguing and I loved it. So naturally I adore this book and I would recommend it to any fantasy lover, but as I was reading it, I thought that this is actually perfect for somebody who's only starting to get into adult fantasy. The learning curve of this book is really low. So basically you're introduced to this world. It's very similar to what our medieval Europe was. So it's something that you already sort of know. And yes, there is magic and there's a mystery, but all the information is given really gradually. You're not bombarded with it, at the beginning, and you don't have to take it all in. But you really get it really gradually, and you learn slowly. And I thought it's a really perfect read for somebody who wants to get into fantasy and doesn't want to be scared or overwhelmed with what fantasy sometimes can be. Now, the writing style itself is very easy to get into. It's pretty straightforward. It's not flowery at all, not like Hobb or Rothfuss. I would sort of describe this somewhere between Sullivan and Brandon Sanderson. So it's really easy to get into. The story flows really nicely. The pace, I think, is just perfect. It's sort of, it flows at a nice pace. It doesn't speed up and slow down. It just goes really nicely throughout the book. Now, I already mentioned that the world is pretty similar to medieval Europe, and a vast portion of the book takes place at the House of the Sixth Order. Now, that is very much a monastery type of living there, and we see these boys train daily with different masters. But that is not the only order in this realm. There are actually 6 orders of the faith, and each one deals with a different element of the faith. It just so happens that the 6th one is connected to fighting and protecting the faith, and in recent years also the realm, because these two, like state and religion, used to be separate, but they're sort of intermingling now, and it's sort of hard to distinguish between the two sometimes. So the existence of the Sixth Order also implies that there is something that they have to protect faith from, and the thing is that this unified realm in which our story takes place has not been unified for that long. It is comprised of different parts, and all these different parts have their own beliefs and religions, and people are struggling to accept faith when they have a tradition of following or believing something else. And that is why different skirmishes and wars happen, and it's up to the Sixth Order as well as the Realm Guard to stop those and prevent a war from spreading. So, this is a fantasy book, so you can expect a little bit of magic in there, and you learn about it really slowly alongside with Valen, who as a boy is not aware of it, but it is something that the Sixth Order fights against. So, you know, during his training and living with the Sixth Order, he comes across it and learns more about it, and it is something that intrigues him because he is a curious boy and he wants to learn more about it. But there are also other mysteries in this book that are playing out in the background, and those intrigue him as well. And he has to be quite patient to sort of connect the dots and pull the strings together to figure what is actually going on, as you know, so does the reader. So yes, it's a very intriguing book, and I really appreciated every moment of it. Now, as intriguing as the story is, I think it's actually Valen himself that makes it work so well. I honestly have to say that he has jumped at the top of my favorite characters list, and I just love him. As we first meet him, I already mentioned that he's being escorted by a chronicler to sort of get into this fight that would potentially set him free. Now, the chronicler doesn't care for him at all. He sees him as a war-raging, killing machine that killed their future emperor, and you know, he doesn't have a smidge of good opinion about Valen at the beginning of the story. And it sort of contradicts how Valen is treated, because if you just imagine, the emperor allowed him to travel alone with a chronicler, not an armed escort at all. So, you know, that's interesting. And he's allowed to wear a sword, and when they come to the city that he has conquered and even ruled for a while, the former governor treats him with so much respect and adoration, actually, that you just, you know, you find it weird that somebody would do that if Valen was such a bad man. You know, just the pieces just don't fit. And then as you go back into his story, you learn that he's a very intelligent, bright boy. He's willing to learn, he's a hard worker, he's not afraid to improve himself. He's also very aware of his own emotions, and he's not afraid to deal with them and explore them, actually. And he's very inquisitive, intuitive. He wants to learn things, and when he starts realizing that there is something going on that actually involves him, but he's not aware of what that is, he wants to, you know, get to the bottom of that mystery, as does the reader, of course. He's also very reasonable, moral, and upstanding, and sometimes that actually sort of clashes with his duty and what is asked of him. And in those instances, he will try to find a way to get around that, so he can be pretty cunning as well. So aside from Valen, there's a huge cast of characters in this book, and the most important ones are the boys that become his brothers and sort of his family. He meets them when he comes to the house of the Sixth Order, and throughout the years they train together and becomes this merry band that works really well together. Each of them has, you know, his own past and things that he has to deal with, and I really adore them all. There's also all the masters that train him, and well, other characters that impact his life. Some are not necessarily human, and those are just as lovable. But yes, I really enjoyed the whole cast. The villains were just evil enough, and yeah, some do frustrate you, but that's their purpose, and I cannot praise this book enough. I have to say that this has become one of my favorite fantasy books, and Anthony Ryan is really up there now, and I will be reading probably everything that he comes up with. I cannot wait to dip my toes into the rest of this series, and hopefully it's just as good. I cannot see it not being, but we shall see. I hope this was useful, and I'm really happy that you managed to watch it, so thank you for that. And see you in my next video. Bye.